Hi everyone, I'm Zeke, and today I want to talk about the upcoming patch 5.1 changes to Astral Odin. There's quite a few changes to cover here, and I'm really excited about them as a whole. I want to make a quick note here that I won't cover any changes that don't affect Astral Odin at level 80. Without further ado, let's jump into it. The first change is a buff to Essential Dignity. The maximum cure potency for when the target's HP is low has been increased by 100. Currently, ED is a 400 potency heal at full health and a 1000 potency heal at 1 HP. The potency of Essential Dignity scales linearly with health. For example, if your target is half health, the healing potency is 700. The buff to ED will make an 1100 potency heal at 1 HP. However, due to the way that ED works, this means that the healing received will increase at all levels of health. For example, at half health, it will now be 750 potency instead of 700. Honestly, this buff surprised me. I think that relative to White Mage, Astro excels at tank HP maintenance. The 2 charges and low cooldown of ED allow it to be efficiently used and used often. I do think it is a useful buff, since tank HP bars feel larger than ever in Shadowbringers, but I'm still really surprised that we didn't see a corresponding buff to Tetragrammaton or Divine Benison, the equivalent White Mage skills. The second change is a pair of MP changes. Nocturnal Aspected Benefic has had its cost reduced from 1000 to 900, and Aspected Helios had its cost reduced from 1100 to 1000. With regards to Aspected Benefic, I think this change, honestly, is garbage. While I think that the change is really well intentioned, at the end of the day, Nocturnal Aspected Benefic is a bad skill that is only really useful in emergencies. It's not an efficient heal, and its only saving grace is that it's an instant cast, which can be used to bail you out of a tight situation. As a result, the skill doesn't end up getting used all that much, so making it cheaper honestly doesn't solve any problems. To be honest, I think that the skill costing any more than its diurnal counterpart is problematic, and I'd honestly like to see its MP cost reduced to 0, or to the same cost as Benefic 1. On the other hand, the change to Aspected Helios is much better in comparison. Aspected Helios is often your go-to heal when you need to spend mana on Astral Odin. While 100 mana isn't much, it'll add up over consecutive uses. The few hundred extra mana it'll give you might give you a few more casts to limp by on before your next Lucid Dreaming or Lightspeed window comes up. This will effectively buy you an extra 30 seconds or so before you run out of mana. Overall, I'd like to see continued mana changes for Astral Odin, but these will do for now. The next change is to Minor Arcana. Now, when you draw a card, your Minor Arcana button will now preview what the card would be if you used Minor Arcana. If you use Minor Arcana on a target party member, that previewed card will be played on your party member with one press of a button. For example, if you draw a Balance, your Minor Arcana button will change to a Lord of Crowns. From here, you can either use Play to give the player a Balance, or Minor Arcana to give them a Lord. This change is fantastic, and is pretty much the finishing touch in removing the clunkiness from Astral Odin. Now, you can play Lords and Ladies just as quickly as you're able to play regular cards. Once a card is drawn, it will always take exactly one action to distribute. This means that when you sleeve draw, it only takes 3 actions to play all 3 cards, while currently it takes as many as 6. This means that you don't have to save Lightspeed to use sleeve draw, as you play cards just as fast without it. Probably the most involved change this patch is to Collective Unconscious. To explain these changes, I want to briefly summarize how the skill works currently. When you use Collective Unconscious currently, it gives you a temporary effect and a persistent effect. Its temporary effect is damage mitigation. As long as you hold the bubble, the players inside the bubble take less damage. If you stop holding the bubble, this effect fades after a small delay. The persistent effect is the regen. When you activate the bubble, anyone inside it immediately receives a regen that lasts for 18 seconds. Even if you drop the bubble immediately, this regen persists. If you hold the bubble, the duration of the regen will be refreshed. What this change will do is that if you're in Nocturnal Sect, it will swap the temporary and persistent effects. The regen will now be temporary. If you stop holding the bubble, the regen will fall off soon afterward. However, the shielding effect is persistent. Even if you just flash the bubble, everyone inside of it will receive a damage reduction buff that persists for 20 full seconds. If you hold the bubble, this 20-second duration will continue to be refreshed until you drop it. This change by itself is pretty cool, but not especially game-breaking. What they've essentially done is provided Noct Astro with a more flexible Sacred Soil. It won't have the persistent regen effect that Sacred Soil has, but it has the advantage that players can move out of the bubble and still continue to have the damage mitigation, which is really unique. One way to think of it is that if everyone starts inside the bubble, it effectively acts as an infinite range version of White Mage's Temperance. That being said, I haven't talked about the numerical changes here, which actually overshadow everything else. The cure potency of the regen has been doubled, from 50 to 100. At the same time, the recast time has been reduced from 90 seconds to 60 seconds. These two changes combined make it so that the total amount of healing you can do with Bubble over the course of the fight is now tripled. Finally, the radius of the bubble has increased from 6 yalms to 8 yalms, which matches that of a sacred soil. 6 to 8 yalms might seem underwhelming, but in terms of square area, this is actually over a 75% increase. After all, think about how giant sacred soil seems compared to bubble currently. Combined, these bubble changes carry a ton of power. Astral Odin currently has the superior kit to White Mage in terms of the amount of lossless healing it can provide, and these giant buffs to the bubble's regens will only exacerbate this difference. Giving Astro better access to lossless healing may also indirectly impact their mana issues. It's entirely possible that clever usage of Collective Unconscious can save you a cast or two of Aspected Helios, which saves you mana, and also frees up that GCD so that you can do more damage. The final changes coming to Astral Odin are potency buffs to Combust 3 and Malefic 4. Combust 3's damage per tick has been increased from 45 to 60, increasing the total damage of the spell from 450 to 600. Malefic 4 has been buffed by 10 potency and is now up to 250 potency instead of 240. Depending on how much DPS you normally put out, this is somewhere in the neighborhood of a 300 to 600 DPS gain for you. In other words, not massive, but still substantial. All in all, this patch contains a slate of small to medium-sized changes to Astro. If you take a step back though, I think the cumulative effect of these changes will be massive. The dedicated mana changes were pretty underwhelming, but the buffs to Collective Unconscious will help save you healing GCDs. With these changes together, I think we've gone from Astros really struggling with mana to having just barely enough. The class has also been finally freed from its clunkiness. Lightspeed and Sleeve Draw can now be used independently, and Collective Unconscious will feel impactful for the first time in Shadowbringers. In terms of damage, I think Astro will close around half the gap between it and White Mage. Astro should now feel slightly easier to play, and the augmentation to its healing toolkit should make it all around easier to provide more damage than ever before. Is Astro meta now? No, but I think it'll be competitive for the first time in Shadowbringers. I think that if you're better at Astral Odin than White Mage, you'll finally find that you contribute more to your team as an Astro. For those of you who are career Astro players who switch to White Mage for Shadowbringers, I think now is the time to dust off your Astro weapons and give the class a spin.